They told you that you're too sensitive, that you feel too much, that you need to toughen up, grow thicker skin, stop being so affected by everything. Your parents said it, your teachers said it, your friends said it. Society has been saying it your entire life, and somewhere along the way, you started believing them. You started thinking something was wrong with you, that your sensitivity was a flaw, a weakness, something to fix or hide or overcome. But what if they were all wrong? What if your sensitivity isn't a weakness at all? What if it's actually advanced equipment? What if the reason you feel so much, perceive so much, are affected by so much is because you're accessing dimensions of reality that most people can't even detect? Think about it. When you walk into a room, you immediately feel the emotional atmosphere. You know when someone's lying, even when their words sound true. You can sense what's about to happen before it happens. You feel other people's pain as if it's your own. You're overwhelmed by crowds, drained by certain people, affected by places and spaces in ways others don't understand. You pick up on subtleties that are invisible to everyone around you. This isn't weakness, this is perception, operating at a bandwidth. Most humans have shut down. You're not broken, you're not defective, you're not too much. You're simply receiving more channels of reality than the standard human receiver is calibrated for. And in a world that only validates what the majority can perceive, that makes you seem strange, overly emotional, impractical, weak. But here's what's actually happening. Reality isn't the solid, three-dimensional, purely physical thing most people think it is. Reality is layered, multidimensional. It operates on frequencies that most human nervous systems have learned to filter out. Because if you perceived everything all the time, you'd be completely overwhelmed. So most people develop filters. They narrow their perception down to what's necessary for basic survival and social functioning. They see the surface, the obvious, the material. But some people like you, either didn't develop those filters or developed much thinner ones. And what that means is that you're perceiving our layers of reality that others have filtered out. You're detecting energy fields, emotional currents, intentional vibrations, probable futures, collective consciousness states, information that's travelling through dimensions most people don't even know exist. You're like someone with perfect pitch living in a world where everyone else is slightly tone deaf. Or someone who can see ultraviolet light in a world where everyone else only sees the visible spectrum. You're not seeing wrongly. You're seeing more. And that more, that additional perception, that's not a curse. That's access. Access to higher dimensions of reality. Let me explain what I mean by dimensions. Most people think dimensions are like different places, different worlds stacked on top of each other. But that's not quite right. Dimensions are more like different frequencies of the same space. Think about a room with a radio in it. Depending on what frequency the radio is tuned to, you hear completely different information. But all those radio signals are in the room simultaneously. They're not in different locations. They're in the same location, operating at different frequencies. Reality works the same way. The physical dimension, the one most people can perceive, that's just one frequency. But there are emotional dimensions, mental dimensions, energetic dimensions, intentional dimensions, probable dimensions, all occupying the same space, but vibrating at different rates. And most people are only tuned to one channel, the physical channel. But your receiver is picking up multiple channels simultaneously. When you walk into a room and immediately feel heavy or light, anxious or peaceful, you're not imagining it. You're detecting the emotional dimension of that space. When you meet someone and instantly know you can't trust them, even though they seem perfectly nice, you're not being paranoid. You're reading the intentional dimension, the layer of reality, where people's true motives live. When you suddenly feel exhausted around certain people, you're not being dramatic. You're experiencing actual energetic exchange, the dimension where life force moves between beings. When you sense something's about to happen, before any physical evidence appears, you're not psychic in some mystical sense. You're detecting the probable dimension, the layer where future possibilities exist before they collapse into physical manifestation. All of this is real. All of this is happening. But because most people can't perceive these dimensions, they dismiss them. They call them imagination, intuition, coincidence, oversensitivity, anything but what they actually are. Perception of frequencies that exist beyond the physical bandwidth. And here's why this matters. Here's why understanding this changes everything. Because once you realize that your sensitivity isn't a flaw, but a capacity, once you understand that you're not broken, but expanded, you stop trying to fix yourself. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop forcing yourself to operate like someone with narrow band perception when you're actually receiving wide band transmission. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. So, what exactly are you perceiving? What are these higher dimensions you have access to? Let me break it down specifically so you can start recognizing what you're actually detecting, instead of thinking you're just overly emotional or weird or defective. First, you're perceiving the emotional dimension. This is the layer of reality where feelings exist as actual fields, not as abstract, internal states, but as tangible, energetic presences that fill spaces and affect everyone in them. When you walk into a house where people have been fighting, you feel that. The anger is still there. It's saturated the space. Most people might feel slightly uncomfortable and not know why. But you feel it clearly. Heavy, oppressive, aggressive. That's not you being too sensitive. That's you accurately reading the emotional field that's actually present. Similarly, when you're in a space where people have been loving, laughing, celebrating, you feel that too. Light, warm, expansive. You're not imagining the difference. The emotional dimension of these spaces is genuinely different, and you can detect it. This is also why certain places feel sacred, or peaceful, or unsettling. They hold emotional resonances from what's happened there. And you're reading those resonances like someone else might read temperature. Second, you're perceiving the intentional dimension. This is the layer where people's true motivations, their real agendas, their hidden feelings exist before they're expressed or even consciously acknowledged. This is why you can tell when someone's lying, why you know when someone dislikes you, even though they're being polite, why you sense danger from people who seem perfectly safe on the surface. You're reading their intention. An intention has a quality, a texture, a vibration. Authentic intention feels one way. deceptive intention feels different. Loving intention, aggressive intention, manipulative intention. They all have distinct signatures, and you're detecting those signatures before they manifest in behaviour. That's not paranoia, that's advanced perception. Third, you're perceiving the energetic dimension. This is the layer where life force, vitality, consciousness itself moves as a tangible substance. When you're around someone and feel drained afterward, that's not metaphor. Energy moved. They were pulling from your field, either intentionally or because they're depleted, and unconsciously drawing from whoever's available. When you're around someone and feel energized, elevated, more alive, energy moved in that interaction too. They were either giving to you, or your fields were resonating in a way that amplified both. This is also why you need time alone to recover after being around people. You're not being antisocial, you're literally recharging. Your energetic field needs to recalibrate after being in contact with other fields. Fourth, you're perceiving the collective dimension. This is the layer where group consciousness, societal moods, cultural atmospheres exist as palpable realities. When you feel heavy for no personal reason, when you're suddenly sad or anxious, and there's nothing in your immediate life causing it, you might be picking up collective emotional states. Grief, fear, anger, confusion that's moving through human consciousness as a whole. This is especially intense during global events, crises, transitions. You feel what humanity is feeling, and if you don't understand that you're empathically connected to the collective field, you'll think something's wrong with you. You'll think you're depressed or anxious for no reason. But there is a reason. You're just receiving information from a dimension most people aren't tuned to. Fifth, you're perceiving the probable dimension. This is the layer where future possibilities exist before they become physical reality. When you have a strong feeling something's going to happen, and then it does, you didn't predict the future, you detected it. The future, or at least the most probable version of it, already existed as a pattern in the field, and you sense that pattern. This is also why you sometimes know you need to avoid a certain route, or call a specific person, or make a particular choice, and later discover that following that intuition saved you from something, or led you to something important. You're not lucky, you're not mystical, you're reading probability currents, you're sensing which timeline is carrying the most momentum, which choice is aligned with the flow of what wants to happen. Now here's the crucial part. The reason your sensitivity has felt like a burden, like a weakness, is because you've been trying to function in a world designed for people who only perceive one dimension, while you're receiving 5 or 6 simultaneously. That's like trying to have a conversation in a quiet library, while also hearing 10 other conversations, background music, traffic outside, and someone's thoughts. It's overwhelming. Not because you're weak, but because you're receiving too much input without knowing how to manage it. And that management, that mastery of your sensitivity, that's what most people never teach you. They just tell you to be less sensitive, which is like telling someone with perfect pitch to hear less accurately. It's not possible. And it's not the solution. The solution is learning to work with your expanded perception, learning to interpret what you're receiving, learning to control when you're open and when you're closed, learning to protect your field, learning to use your access to higher dimensions as the gift it actually is. So how do you do that? How do you transform sensitivity from overwhelming burden into practical superpower? Let me give you specific practices that actually work. Not spiritual bypass, not just meditation and crystals. Real techniques for managing multidimensional perception in a world that doesn't acknowledge these dimensions exist. First, learn to distinguish between what's yours and what's not. This is foundational. When you feel something, pause. Ask, is this mine? Is this emotion? This sensation? This mood? Is it coming from inside me? Or am I detecting it from outside? If it appeared suddenly with no clear cause, if it doesn't match anything happening in your life, it's probably not yours, you're receiving it. And once you identify that it's not yours, it loses most of its power over you. Second, develop energetic boundaries, not walls, not shutting down, but conscious filters. Imagine your energy field has a membrane around it, like skin, and you can choose what penetrates that membrane. You can say, I'm open to information, but I'm not absorbing other people's emotional states. I'm receiving, but I'm not merging. Practice this daily, especially before going into crowded or intense situations. Set the boundary consciously. Third, discharge regularly. You're accumulating emotional or energetic information constantly. If you don't release it, it builds up and you feel progressively more overwhelmed. So create discharge practices. Movement helps. Dance, run, shake. Water helps. Showers, baths, swimming. Sound helps. Singing, toning, screaming into a pillow. Whatever works for you. Just make sure you're releasing what you've absorbed instead of storing it. Fourth, spend time in nature. Nature operates at a coherent frequency. When you're around trees, water, earth, your field automatically recalibrates. The chaotic static you pick up from humans and technology gets cleared. Your nervous system remembers its natural rhythm. This isn't optional for highly sensitive people. This is maintenance. If you don't have regular contact with natural environments, your sensitivity will feel like torture. Fifth, choose your environments consciously. You can't be everywhere. You can't be around everyone. Some places and people are so energetically toxic that no amount of boundary setting will protect you. And that's okay. You're allowed to be selective. You're allowed to say no to situations that you know will deplete you. You're not being difficult, you're being responsible for your well-being. Sixth, trust what you're receiving. This is huge. Your sensitivity gives you information that's often more accurate than what your logical mind or physical senses tell you. When you feel something's off, it probably is. When you sense you need to leave, leave. When you're drawn to something or someone, follow that. Your expanded perception exists to guide you, but it can only guide you if you trust it. Seventh, find others like you. You're not alone in this. There are millions of people operating with expanded perception. And when you connect with them, when you're around others who can also perceive multiple dimensions, you stop feeling crazy. You stop feeling wrong. You realise this is just a different way of being human. A more awake way, a more conscious way, and having community that validates your experience makes everything easier. And finally, reframe your entire relationship to sensitivity. Stop seeing it as a burden you have to manage and start seeing it as access you get to use. You can read rooms, you can detect deception, you can sense danger before it arrives. You can feel healing before it's visible. You can perceive love beyond words. You can connect to consciousness itself. These aren't small things. These are profound capabilities. When you walk into a job interview and immediately know this isn't right, you just saved yourself months or years of misery. When you meet someone and feel that, yes, in your body, and they become significant in your life, your sensitivity gave you that connection. When you avoid the accident by taking a different route, when you call your friend right when they needed you, when you know exactly what to say to someone in pain, that's all your expanded perception working for you. Your sensitivity isn't making you weak. Your sensitivity is making you effective in ways most people can't access. You're navigating reality with more information. And yes, that more information can be overwhelming when you don't know how to work with it. But once you learn, once you develop the skills to manage what you're receiving, you become someone who moves through the world with extraordinary awareness. You see what's hidden, you feel what's real, you know what's true. And in a world where most people are operating blind to the deeper dimensions, where most people are reacting to surfaces and missing the actual dynamics underneath, your sensitivity makes you powerful. It makes you valuable. It makes you exactly who reality needs you to be. So stop apologising for your sensitivity. Stop trying to be less of what you are. Stop seeing your expanded perception as a flaw. You have access to dimensions of reality that most people will never know exist. That's not a weakness. That's a gift. Use it. Master it. Honour it. Because reality needs people who can perceive beyond the physical. Reality needs translators, bridge builders, people who can sense what's happening in the invisible layers and bring that awareness into the visible world. That's your role. Not to be normal, not to fit in, but to perceive truly and live from that expanded awareness. And when you do, when you fully claim your sensitivity as the multidimensional access it actually is, you stop being a victim of your own perception. You become a master of it. And everything changes. If this video helped you see your sensitivity differently, write in the comments. My sensitivity is my access. Write it as your new truth. Write it as your reclaiming of what was always a gift. Nobody.